Ladies and gentlemen, we're just 1 week away from 9 days, 6 races. Formula E is set to return, and what a return it's going to be. Those 6 races all taking place in Berlin, in Germany, the Tempelhof Airport, 3 different layouts, an absolute cluster of content. And I, for one, cannot wait. But before we get to the 5th of August 2020, a week today, the first race of the return, the 6th race of the season, there's a few things we need to clear up just to get us back in the swing of things and to see what's going on. And next week, just at the beginning of next week, before the action commences, we're going to do a bit of a transfer talk video talking about all the different moves, all the different driver switches we've had over this kind of summer break period, and also a preview for the 6 races up ahead. But today, I want to take a look at who is in contention for the championship. We all know is the most unpredictable motorsport out there, and that's why we love it. You never know who's going to be on pole, who's going to even get it through to the final stage of qualifying, who's going to be on the podium, who's going to miss out on points, and ultimately who's going to win. However, with these 6 races being so tightly compact together, if a driver makes a mistake in the first race, that could lead to them not even being able to take part in the second race. And likewise, if they crash in 2 races, once again, what I just said comes into play, but then do they have enough parts to even rebuild the car this time around? And all of that is going to be really interesting to see how different teams and different drivers approach the opening couple of rounds, whether some of them will be a bit more conservative just to preserve their cars, get back into the swing of racing, but others, I mean, let's be honest, most of them will dive straight back in at the deep end, elbows out, nice and aggressive, and it really is all to play for. Technically, every single driver that takes part in these 6 races has the possibility, the mathematical possibility, to win the championship. But considering the fact there's already been 5 races, it's unlikely that a lot of those are going to get anywhere close to even finishing in the top 10. And there's, of course, a couple of cars that haven't even scored points yet this season, so you can understand why we're not going to focus on all of the 24 drivers in the championship. But I've narrowed it down to the top 10, and I actually think all of those inside the top 10 have a chance, a realistic chance, of taking the fight to Costa, who's our current championship leader. So, just quickly, if you are new around here and you want to look at more Formula E Season 6 and going into Season 7 content, subscribe button is down below. I hope you enjoy today's video. But I'll tell you what, let's start off looking at the current standings. Here it is. This is the full standings list. Of course, it doesn't include any of the new drivers that are coming into play in Berlin. So we've got René Rast, who's coming in at Audi. He's replacing Daniel Abt, who's moving to Neo. That means Martin Qua, bless him, down in P24 will not be competing in these last 6 rounds. And also Brendan Hartley, who's at Dragon down in P20, he's being replaced by Sergio Sette Camara. So of course, we don't know anything realistically about how these drivers are going to be able to perform in Formula E. And they could, in theory, show up and absolutely blitz the field and win the championship. Very unlikely, I would like to say. But René Rast, with plenty of experience in DTM and being part of the Audi program. Sergio Sette Camara has been great in Formula 2 for the last couple of years. Not quite on the level of the likes of Nick de Vries or even Ollie Rowland when he was there a few years back. But still, Camara is going to be able to do a solid job. Though I'm disappointed Brendan Hartley's moving on. A couple more changes as well we'll talk about in next week's transfer talk. And also, Pascal Wehrlein, a huge story. There's so many. Pascal Wehrlein in 14th place also won't be taking place in these final 6 rounds. He's been replaced by Alex Lynn, returning for a 3rd stint in Formula E. But the focus, of course, those top 10 places. I am being a little bit mean to Sebastian Buemi, Andre Lotterer and Nick de Vries, who've just missed out on that top 10, but I don't want to be here forever. And as you can see, even Sam Bird, who's on 29 points, is still comfortably behind championship leader Costa. But with 6 races, all it takes is for Bird to win 1 race, pole position in that race, fastest lap and Costa not to finish, and straight away they're back in contention. So I really do think these top 10, probably throw in Buemi, Lotterer and de Vries, all have a chance. But we'll start off with Sam Bird down in P10 and work our way forward. And what a disappointing season I think it's been for Sam Bird. When I first was getting back into the swing of things of Formula E, just taking a look at the standings, seeing the results of all the different drivers, the one that shocked me was Sam Bird. I remember, of course, that first race of the season, and that was the one that really sticks out in my mind, becoming the first driver again to win in every single season of Formula E. Lucas de Grassi can also equal that if he wins one of these races in Berlin, which I think he might do. He's very good around these particular streets. However, Sam Bird won that first race of the season, got a point for group qualifying as well, something they've added for this season, and looked really, really strong. Not only did his drive really cement the fact that his talent is incredible in Formula E, but also the car looked really good. Robin Freins isn't having the best of seasons, but even in that particular race was looking a little bit better. Ever since then, he got 2 points in Chile, 1 point in Marrakesh, and that's it for Sam Bird. So that 26-point haul he got in the first race of the season is enough to pretty much just keep him inside the top 10. But apart from that, it's been dismal. 2 DNFs in the second race in Saudi Arabia, round 2 of the season. Contact with Mitch Evans led him out of that one. Mexico also a mistake on his own into the barriers out of the E-Prix. I also struggle with Sam Bird, though he is one of the most unlucky drivers in Formula E, and though he's a driver certainly capable of winning multiple races in the remaining 6, it's not been a happy hunting ground for Virgin. Last year, both cars struggled to get anywhere near the points, and in previous seasons also, going back to the Gen 1 cars, really struggled to get any meaningful results. And actually, if you look back at last season, and technically the season before, Sam Bird's title hunt really took a hit when heading to Berlin. And so having 6 races here, and yes, there's going to be 3 different circuit layouts, I don't think the team will be all that confident going into these final few rounds. Also throw in the fact that Sam Bird is leaving Virgin at the end of this big week. I was going to call it big weekend. This week and a half of racing. It's going to be his last 6 races for Virgin. He's moving to Jaguar, what we think is alongside Mitch Evans, though we're not quite sure just yet, but I'd be very surprised if Jaguar let their star man go. And so for Sam Bird, the fact that he's got so close to multiple Formula E World titles and never quite got it over the line, what a story it would be if he could finally do it in this craziest of seasons in 2020. Just in front of him though, just 1 point ahead, is Oliver Rowland. And though Rowland is just 1 point in front of Sam Bird, I'm liking his chances. Ollie's another driver that has got criminally unlucky in Formula E, still yet to get a victory in the category, however has got a couple of podiums, none yet this season, but at the end of last season was getting better and better and better, and he's actually one of only 2 drivers inside that top 10 yet to get a victory in Formula E. What I would say about Rowland is that he's really got to turn around some of these results recently. They've not been dreadful, but he started off the season with a 4th and 5th place in the 2 Saudi Arabia rounds, failed to score in Chile, and then got 6 points and 2 points respectively in the last 2 races. So he's been consistent and is technically got the joint best point scoring record of any driver so far in the season, scored in every single race bar 1. Only 4 other drivers have been able to do that, all of them in front of Rowland. But that Nissan car is looking okay. Last year, I think it was much, much better. The team just didn't quite have that reliability, that experience in Formula E, and that really cost them on several occasions last year, messing up energy input, messing up on driver mistakes. But Rowland, who's now got a full year under his belt, I'm excited to see what he can do. Did really well here, actually. I know this is a little bit different in the virtual race at home races in Berlin. Last year didn't do too bad either, so I think Rowland could be a surprise package in these final 6 rounds. Rowland is only 1 point behind 2-time champion, current champion, JeanEric Vergne. And what a season it's been for him. I find like I'm going to say that for quite a few drivers, but it's really not gone the way of JeanEric Vergne this season. DNF in the first race in Saudi Arabia thanks to a steering column issue. Scored 4 points in the second race of the season, but in the third race, contact, tyre being exploded underneath the car, out of the race in Chile. but has been able to recover in the last 2 races. 4th place in round 4 in Mexico, and a 3rd place, his first podium of the season last time out in Marrakesh. But he's been a long way off his teammate, and Costa, who's adapted really, really well to Techeetah. Vergne, who is their golden boy, their star man, just hasn't really been able to get a real swing of results under his belt. But what I would say is this is JeanEric Vergne. We saw the exact same thing play out last year. Went so long without a victory, then won in Paris, got that win in Monaco, and just the snowball effect really continued for Vergne. And if you do look at his results, those first 3 races are dismal, but the last 2 is the exact kind of consistency he proved he had last year. And last year in Berlin, he was clearly the driver of the day. He was fantastic in this race. A car which looks really, really strong this season once again. I would certainly not discount JeanEric Vergne. He's got a long way to go. Over double his points. 36 points he's got to get to catch up to his teammate. Quite a gap. But certainly, if anyone's going to be able to do it, it's JeanEric Vergne. But I think something he will be disappointed about, and perhaps one of the big surprises of the season, is the man in 7th, Edo Mortara, for Venturi. 32 points, just 1 point ahead of JeanEric Vergne. And again, if you look at the standings, it's so close between so many of these drivers. But Mortara has only failed to finish in 1 race this season. He's part of those 5 drivers that have scored in every race bar 1. And the race he didn't finish was thanks to a DNF in Chile. His best race of the season was a 4th place in the 2nd round in Saudi Arabia. But Mortara, who I think is more than fair to say is probably in the worst car out of all of these group inside the top 10, has been really consistent. And last year I was critical of Mortara going into the season. I was surprised that the team decided to keep him over Mauro Engel at the end of season 4. But he's really proved that he deserves that seat. He's been better than Massa last year, and you thought maybe with Felipe having an extra year of experience would be able to catch up a little bit to Mortara. But I think it's more than fair to say that Edo's pushed that bar up once again this year and is really outperforming that car. Again, things have gone his way with the likes of Vergne and big heavy hitters making contact and dropping backwards, but still the fact he's been able to stick in that role, stay in that position for so long, has been really impressive. Massa, who I think a lot of people would regard as a good driver, a solid driver, has only scored 2 points this year. So then when you compare that to Mortara's 32 in the hunt for the title, I think really just outlines how good of a season Mortara is having. Berlin, he did okay last year, nothing spectacular. But again, if he can just continue to grind out these mid-point scoring results, yes, it's probably not going to get him a title, but if that can keep him inside the top 10, I think that's going to be a really good season for Edo. In front of him, though, now, I think you're really starting to get into those drivers that have got a realistic chance of pushing for that title. But what is funny, though, is only 1 driver inside this top 6 group have won the title. Actually, only 2 drivers inside the top 10 have won the title. One of those is Lucas de Grassi, but on joint points with Lucas de Grassi is Stoffel Vandoorne. And he is certainly a driver that has had an up and down season. New team, Mercedes EQ. I don't think anyone expected them to be as close as they are to a title in their first season of Formula E. De Vries has struggled a little bit getting used to the car in Formula E, but has been unlucky, has been on for a couple of podiums and things just haven't quite turned out his way. A few contact issues, a few issues with the tap mode as well, early on getting used to that. But Vandoorne, putting that year of experience with HWA last year to really good use and scoring back-to-back podiums in the first race of the season was really something special. And after round 3 in Chile, was leading the standings. However, after that, hasn't scored a point in the last 2 races. 0 and 0 in rounds 4 and 5. And now is finding himself on the back foot a little bit. Again, comfortably off Championship's leader Antonio Felix da Costa. 29 points off that championship lead. But like I said with Sam Bird, all that needs to happen there is for Vandoorne to win a race, or for Vandoorne to get second place, da Costa not to finish, and he's straight back in the hunt. And I think Stoffel is a driver that is in that top calibre of driver in Formula E. Though that car is more of a midfield car on regular race pace, I would suggest, I think Vandoorne has that ability to go that extra mile. Likewise with De Vries. And I think what is going to be interesting about Mercedes, that have unveiled a brand new livery just like in Formula 1, a black livery supporting the BLM movement. I think for Mercedes, if it comes to the situation where De Vries is ahead of Vandoorne, I think they're going to be more than sensible and move those drivers around, depending on how close the title really is getting. But I've been really impressed with Stoffel this year. If he can just put those last 2 results behind him, get back to that form he was on at the beginning of the year, he's going to have a really good run of it. Obviously not won a title now since 2015. I believe it was when he won GP2 all those years ago, and is finally back up on the podium more regularly than he has been in years. And I wonder if that bit of confidence, also winning the virtual races at home, the championship, and won the title here in Berlin, maybe that just will have a little bit of extra confidence. But like Roland, I don't think it'll make much of a difference. But in front of him, or technically in front of him, but only just thanks to the fact that Grassi got a podium, Lucas de Grassi is a driver I think you should keep your eye on. And I always say it about Lucas, he's another driver in that group of 5 that has got an almost perfect record of races this season, only not scoring in 1 race. And actually, that was in the first race of the season. So de Grassi is technically on the best point scoring streak of any driver in the field. It's nothing crazy spectacular, is what I will say. A big 18 points haul in the second race of the season, a second place in Saudi Arabia. And then after that, it's been a 6th place and 2 7th places, which is fine. And when you consider where he is in the standings, when you consider the fact that Vandoorne has been on the podium twice, and de Grassi has only been on it once, but that bit of consistency has helped him stay in there, you can understand why Lucas is so highly rated in Formula E. That vast experience, being there since day one, technically being there even before day one, was right there at the beginning of the Formula E concept. And the fact that he's still in the running for titles all this years later is very, very impressive. He is, like I mentioned at the beginning, one of only 2 drivers that can win a race in every single season continuing this year. Sam Bird has already got that victory. De Grassi is the other one. And this is a circuit that Audi usually perform very, very, very well at. And it's a circuit de Grassi usually performs very, very, very well at. And I think if you've never watched Formula E, do not discount Lucas de Grassi. If you have watched Formula E, you know exactly what I mean. He's a driver who's perhaps the most consistent, along with JeanEric Vergne. I'd say those are the 2 that have always been able to pull results out of bad weekends, bad qualifyings. Even de Grassi hasn't had great qualifyings this year. And if they can get over that hurdle, they should be in a great position to get closer to that title. And last year, of course, de Grassi was pretty much down and out going into those final 2 races in New York. Does some great performances, ends up second in the title, Vergne's closest challenger. So though Lucas often goes under the radar, a little bit like he's already done this season, it wouldn't surprise me if push comes to shove in the final few races if he manages to rise to the top. So de Grassi, just like Roland, some outside chances there. And then we move into the top 4. The 4 drivers that have really impressed this year. I think that have surprised a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people put many of these drivers at the top of their championship predictions. I think I put a couple of these. But the way all 4 of these have performed, for the most part, over this season, has been very, very impressive. But the one blemish in that top 4, and this is no disrespect to him, is Maximilian Günther. His first full season in Formula E, got the call up to BMW. Last year was in and out of that Dragon team. Contract issues, Dragon, no idea what they were doing. They had a real diamond in Günther last year. Should have given him more time. This year has been super quick. Has been really, really quick. But it's perhaps got the strangest driver record of points in the entire grid this season. Has only scored in 2 races we've had so far, and yet finds himself in 4th place. And that's kind of what I mean by we really don't know where anyone's going to finish. Anyone could still win this title. But Günther, who scored no points in the opening 2 rounds, one of those was a penalty that took him out of the points after some ambitious overtaking before the safety car came in. But hey, he's technically stood up on the podium. But that 3rd race of the season in Chile, what a drive that was. One of the best drives of the season so far. First victory in Formula E. His first for BMW, a German driver in a German car. The team was so happy that their gamble of signing him paid off. Round 4, in Mexico, once again doesn't score points, and round 5 takes second place on the final lap. So he's got a win and a second place. Also managed to win group qualifying in Marrakesh as well, so I've got a point there. And he's on 44 points and in the championship hunt. Heading to what is going to be 6 races at his home event, a track that BMW, just like Techeetah and Audi, are usually very, very good at. Or at least they were strong at last season and were okay back in the Andretti days, but we shouldn't really count them. But BMW, their home circuit as well, I've got a good feeling about Gunter. It's all just going to be, though, how he's going to be able to jump back into that car, relearn it, and get up to speed. And I think that's something that a lot of these drivers have more experience, which is why I'm so excited to see the Grassi. I think perhaps will be able to jump back in and be a little bit more up to speed because they've had that gap so many times before. But these are professional racing drivers, and Gunter, for sure, is going to be able to jump in simulators. BMW are a team that are going to have the works of world-class simulators, should be fine. But even though he's had that victory and that second place, he still finds himself behind teammate Alexander Sims, whose point scoring record is very similar to his teammates, actually. He got that win, his first win of the season, or his first win in Formula E, in that second race in Saudi Arabia, but also got pole position in the opening 2 rounds of the season, which was technically 3 in a row if you include the last race of last season in New York. So a big points haul from pole positions alone. Also managed to get a 5th place in round 4 in Mexico with the fastest lap as well, and non-scores in round 3 and round 5. So for Alex Sims, it has been up and down. It's not been sunshine and rainbows. But once again, he's a driver that last year was his first full year. He learned the car. He learned how tricky Formula E can be. But I think more importantly, learned that consistency is king. Got really unlucky in the opening round with attack mode and race strategy. Probably should have won on that particular day, but hey, managed to redeem himself in race 2. Just like we said with teammate Gunter, home race for BMW, a circuit which they quite like or suited their car last year. I think they're going to have a good run this year. Both of these two are in good hands with a good team. But unlike teams like the 2 drivers ahead of us, especially the man in second place, and unlike the likes of maybe Sam Bird with Virgin, Vandoorne, we spoke about it, to Grassi, these 2 are in direct competition for that title. There won't be any team orders. There's very, very rarely team orders in Formula E, and that could be a really fun dynamic to analyse over the next 6 races. And finally, the top 2, a 10 points gap in front of Sims and an 11-point gap to championship leader Costa. Mitch Evans has been a huge surprise in Season 6, and I, for one, absolutely love it. Jaguar have really struggled over the last couple of years, and last year finally was able to get that first victory in Rome. What a drive it was from Mitch Evans, second on the grid, a very gutsy overtake through the final couple of corners of the lap. Also managed to get a second place in Switzerland a little bit later on in the season, but this year didn't start off so great. Got 1 point in the first race of the season for 10th place, also got fastest lap, so that bumped it up to 2. Didn't score in the next race, and you're starting to think, oh, Jaguar, maybe this year just isn't that year. They've not made that step forward they were looking for. But then Chile, pole position, 3rd place, 19 points, followed up by a fastest in group qualifying and race win in Mexico. 9 points followed then in Marrakesh, and he is now the closest challenger to Costa. But it has been a bit of an up and down season for the team. Their car has looked great on some occasions, looked pretty awful on others. Last year didn't perform great in Berlin, and they will probably know in the back of their minds that Techeetah, BMW, Audi, maybe even the likes of Mercedes and Virgin are going to be maybe ahead of them. And that's going to be a real struggle for them. Mitch Evans, who we think is staying at the team, I'm pretty confident he's staying at the team. He's going to be knowing that this could be his final season as that team lead, and his final season to really have that team all rallied behind him and to go for a title. But unlike Costa, who's leading the championship at the moment, I think Evans will have the luxury of preferred strategy in the sense that team orders will come into play if needed. But what is an issue with Mitch Evans is that teammate James Collado isn't really anywhere near this top fight. He's kind of down towards the rear end of the field, in with the likes of the Neos. Maybe not quite the Neos, sorry James, but the Dragon cars, Daniel Abt when he was still racing at Audi as well. And I think that may hinder Evans a little bit if he's caught in some traffic, maybe behind both Audis or both Techeetahs, something like that. But I do think Evans has got a good chance. But the current championship leader, the man who has technically, just like Grassi, have the best point scoring streak at the moment, who has pretty much dominated this championship since round 3, Antonio Felix da Costa. 3 points in the opening 2 rounds for brand new team DS Techeetah. And you're thinking, oh, maybe that switch from BMW wasn't quite a good idea. He's only then and got 2 second places and a win in the final 3 races. Back that up with a pole position last time out in Marrakesh. Straight into the championship lead. And Antonio Felix da Costa, the man who for so long was the only driver to have 1 win, that waited so long to get that 2nd win last year with BMW, endured a season of real highs and lows last year. Seems like this move to DS Techeetah, that seemed like a gamble, seemed like a risk at the beginning of the year, seems to be paying off. The car looks good. Da Costa's in good form. I don't see why he can't win this. There's mistakes that are always going to be round the corner in Formula E, and it's so hard to call. But this really is Da Costa's to lose. 11 points is a huge gap in Formula E. And yes, it could all come crumbling down after the first race of the season if Da Costa retires, Evans wins, Sims is 2nd. But Da Costa has really shown that he can put that experience to good use. He's one of those drivers that has also been here since day 1. And I've got a good feeling season 6, Da Costa could be world champion. But I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Just an update. I'm not going to do race reviews for every single race. What I'm going to do is group the 3 sets of 2 together. So the first 2 races on the 5th and 6th of August, I'll do a review together, then the next 2, then the next 2, and then a roundup of the season. So hopefully that works for you guys. But if you've got any feedback or requests, throw them down in the comment section down below. Next week will be a transfer talk, previews, and race reviews. Hope you're looking forward to it as much as I am, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.